What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Slow Your Roll. I'm Alex, and we're going to be talking about leveling up your character today. Luckily for us, it's super easy to level up your character in DC20, and if you go to page 95 of the PDF, we're going to go over the steps right now. And on page 95, you'll find the player character progression guide. This chart right here is a general player progression, but if you want to go to your specific class table, that's going to give you a little bit more information that you're going to be able to go off of. Specifically speaking on things like the health, stamina, and magic points, along with maneuvers or techniques. That'll be specific to whatever your class is. So go ahead and go over to your class table to have that for a reference. But now that we're on our class that you're going to be leveling up, please add whatever feature that you're going to be adding from this level, whether it be your level 2 class feature, add that to your character sheet, or if you have to pick a subclass because you're leveling up to level 3, go ahead and pick which one you might want. So let's go ahead and go through the first couple of steps together so I can explain what's going on. The combat mastery changes every odd level, and if yours changed, there's a couple of things that'll change about your character sheet. If your combat mastery changed, then so did your physical defense, your area defense, attack and spell checks, attribute saves, and save DCs. They are all affected, but most of the time you're just increasing it by 1. And already touching on the way that this character builder is set up, it goes through every single step for every single level. If you're level 2, we won't have to worry about the combat mastery step. The next step that we are going to have to worry about, though, is attribute points. You'll gain attribute points at 3, 5, 8, and 10. And if you've gained any attribute points, go ahead and add those to your character sheet too. Keeping in mind that you have an attribute limit, and that attribute limit doesn't go up until 5, 10, 15, or 20. So if it's not level 5, then you can't increase your prime. Which, if you did end up increasing your prime, would change a couple of things too, but we don't have to worry about that just yet. But if you increased any attributes during this level up, please go ahead and increase your skills connected to that attribute too. The next step that we're going to be looking at while leveling up your character is looking at skill, trade, and language points. At levels 3, 5, 8, and 10, you're going to be getting skill, trade, or language points. And you can use those however you'd like. It's kind of like spice of life or flavor, but make sure you assign all of those given to you by your class table. And please always remember to reference back to your class table for whatever's going to be changing for your level up. The next step we're going to be tackling for leveling up is going to be your health. Every single level, your health changes. By going over to your class table, you'll see how much. And for marshals, you could expect it's going to be a little bit more than for spellcasters. But believe it or not, that's not the only thing that will affect your health from level up to level up. If you increase your might or gain an ancestry trait that increases your health, either of those would apply, so make sure to keep track of those when calculating health. And when it comes to defenses, the same thing happens. We need to double check those because it might have just gone up as well. If any attribute increased, then you're going to have to increase one of your defenses. If you've increased your might or charisma, then you're going to have to increase your area defense. If you've increased your agility or intelligence, then you're going to have to increase your precision defense. And if you're wondering by how much we increase these things, it's usually just by 1. But if you want a concrete answer, please just redo the formula to calculate your precision or area defense. And those formulas can also be found on page 93 in step 6 of the character creation guide. And then the next but last step when leveling up a character, did you get a talent? Every even level you're going to receive a talent, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and so on until you get to 20. And there are 3 types of talents that you can take. There's a general talent, a multi-class talent, or a class talent. General talents are really easy. It's kind of like a talent that could apply to any class, and any class can take them. Things like increasing your attributes, increasing your skills or trades, or a martial expansion, or a spellcasting expansion. If you're a spellcaster and you're trying your best to multi-class into being a martial type of fighter, but you don't necessarily want to be a barbarian or you don't necessarily want to be a monk, this Martial expansion gives you a very broad range to still be able to bonk as hard as you'd like. And same thing with the spellcasting expansion. But the best thing about the spellcasting expansion, it's perfect for other spellcasters to take as well. It's honestly such a good talent that it's hard to beat if you're trying to multiclass. The same, however, does not go for the martial expansion. If you're already a martial and you take the martial expansion, there are so many better options you could have taken while trying to multiclass. Now, before we talk about multiclassing entirely, let's talk about class talents, because every single one of the classes has class talents. These are also referred to as Paragon subclasses, because at level 3, you have 3 subclasses, believe it or not. 2 within the class description, but there's also a Paragon subclass. And a Novice Paragon just gains a class talent of your choice from your class. And each and every single one of these classes have a class talent, whether it be Barbarian, Bard, Champion, Commander. But I will point out that these class talents are not all made equal. If you just look at the Cleric, for instance, there's little to no requirements to be able to take the expanded order as a Cleric. But if you are a Druid, you have to be level 3 to take any of these advancements. So only about half of the classes have a class talent that you can take at level 2. Most of the time, class talents don't apply until level 3, or you're talking about a Paragon subclass. But in my opinion, what happens to be the best option when leveling up trying to pick a talent, you can multi-class. You can pick one first level class feature from any class, which means if you wanted to grab the Barbarian's Rage as a monk, you could totally do that. If you wanted to grab the Sorcerer's Overload magic ability as a spellcaster, you could totally do that. So now that we've gone over all of the options for talents, I'm going to go over them in a general sense, starting with the general talents. Attribute increase or skill and trade increase, those are traps. Don't ever take those. Any amount of multiclassing would be better than these, because not only can you achieve what these do, you can achieve more than what these do with simply taking a specific multiclass talent. These are traps. Don't ever take attribute increase or skill or trade increase. Not only that, if you are a martial, do not take the martial expansion general trait, because it's kind of a trap too. Sure, 2 additional maneuvers and an additional technique is nice, but multiclassing into a different class can give you essentially those benefits and more. Now, the only thing a part of the general talents that is kind of, let's say, accurately powered, as in enticing to be able to take as a talent, spellcasting expansion. You're going to gain 2 mana points, which is kind of a lot in comparison to any other spellcasting feature. You gain access to any spell list, and you also learn an additional spell. An additional spell and access to a spell list is essentially what most of the other features are going to provide as a spellcaster if you're trying to multiclass. There are some exceptions that I would say are a little bit better than spellcasting expansion, but it doesn't happen very often, and it's great for a martial to take or a spellcaster to take if the martial is trying to multiclass into being a spell guy. If you're not one of the luckier classes that has a level 2 ability that you can take for your class talents, then I would absolutely suggest multiclassing into a different class. These class talent options are pretty dang good, but there are a couple of better ones. Just speaking in general, as a martial, grabbing Barbarian's Rage is amazing. It's extra damage and extra resistance. Spellblade's Bound Weapon or Spell Discipline gives you a lot of versatility. If you want to have a weapon that kind of acts like Thor's hammer, or like you're a samurai that lives by the honor of the blade, this is perfect for you. And the Spellblade Discipline is a versatility thing that kind of lets you branch out in essentially any area, much like the Cleric's Divine Domain. This specific talent is honestly so powerful that it might be nerfed in the future. It gives you a choice of 2 different domains, and those domains do almost everything available in the game, and it's one of the only ways outside of level 4 and level 7 that you're able to gain extra ancestry traits. And those extra ancestry traits essentially are another class feature added to your repertoire. So picking the Cleric's Divine Domain multi-class feature for any other class is honestly such a good option, I can't really argue with it. Still talking about martials for a moment, you could pick the Monk's Stances, or even the Champion's Master at Arm or Fighting Spirit. All of those things are great options to be able to choose as a martial, and it'll greatly expand your bonking abilities too. If we were going to talk about spellcasters though, we might want to talk about the Sorcerer's Overload magic. That's essentially the Barbarian's Rage, but in a spell type of sense. It's extra damage because you're rolling so much higher. Just make sure you even make that concentration save. Spell School Initiate is a little bit like the spellcasting expansion, but you get to overpower one of your spells with an extra MP enhancement, which in my opinion brings it over the spellcasting expansion. Talking about spellcasters, of course I have to mention the Cleric's Order, because you could just take magic twice and it would do the same thing as the spellcasting expansion, but maybe a little bit better. Also, the Warlock Contract or Pact Boon is really helpful for essentially any spellcaster too. Sure, the Pact Boon, having a Pact Cantrip, giving a little bit of extra damage is awesome, but some classes also get to change that damage and make it more and become resistant to those damages. So if you think about synergy with your Pact Cantrip, you can become very powerful. But not only that, the Warlock Contract is so good for essentially any class because there's not a single class in existence that couldn't use more health in a pinch or advantage on a save. But if we are talking about just expanding your repertoire, you could pick the Bard's Remarkable Repertoire, which gives you a couple extra spells and a special way to cast them. And talking about the Spellblade Discipline, again, it's kind of like an underpower version of the Cleric's Divine Order. And you cannot go wrong with the Cleric's Divine Order or Spellblade Discipline for any class. So that did feel like a lot, and believe it or not, that's not even half of it, because I've got all of these classes characterized and a couple of ranked subclasses for later. So if you guys want to see my tier list for the best options for subclasses, leave that down below what your ranking might be, and I hope you'll not tear me apart for mine. If you need any more help leveling up your characters or suggestions for talents, subclasses, multi-classes, or anything of the like, please leave that down below, and we'll see you all later.